Welcome to the Steve Reads His Post podcast. For those of you who are too busy or too lazy to actually read my post, I've taken on the huge effort of reading them to you. Enjoy. Microsoft steps up to Salesforce's AppExchange. Let's be real. The Business Applications ISV motion from Microsoft to date has been a shit show. Many budding ISVs struggled to navigate the programs only to reach the conclusion that there was not much there. For all the talk about how important ISVs are, Microsoft's actions to date have failed to live up to their words. I want to personally apologize. The boy who cried wolf. I'm usually pretty cynical, but over the past few years, I have consistently fallen for the promises from many Microsoft team members, each of whom was independently responsible for some sliver of an ISV effort. Each of them failed to live up to the lowest of promises and expectations. The scattered effort lacked both direction and motivation. Yet in spite of that history, I continued to get excited about ideas and shared many of them here with you. If you had taken some of my advice, you too would have been disappointed with the results. For that, I apologize. A story of failure. AppSource should work, but it doesn't. In Microsoft's zeal to turn it into something big quickly, shortly after it launched, they lowered the bar to entry and it promptly filled up with shit. It remains full of shit as I write this, from apps that won't even install to some that are downright security risks. Co-sell should work, but it doesn't. The idea that a Microsoft seller could actually close a deal faster with an ISV is not one most Microsoft sellers have embraced. Instead, they see ISVs as confusing the conversation and slowing the sale. ISV competency should work, but Microsoft pulled the plug on it only a few months after it was introduced because they could not remember why they launched it. The very definition of insanity, doing the same things and expecting different results, was fully in play. The missing piece. The landscape that I described above is what Stephen Guggenheimer, Googs, was brought in to fix. Turn the shit show into a jewel. I previously wrote of my high hopes for this new savior of ISV. Right out of the gate, priority one for Googs appeared to be, how can Microsoft make money on ISVs? For many, it seemed like adding insult to injury. Seriously, you offer ISVs shit, and now you want them to pay for that shit? If I were to stop writing this right here, it would not sound very good, but you know I always find the rainbows. Revenue sharing is brilliant. Not a novel idea, every other platform has been doing it, but Microsoft doing it also will actually be the best possible thing Microsoft will have done for ISVs. Revenue sharing is brilliant? Googs is no dummy, far from it. He is a no-nonsense kind of guy that I've gotten to know. He was even on my podcast recently. As Googs surveyed the failures I outlined above, along with the many other failures I did not go into, he spotted the obvious common denominator. He slapped his forehead and said, "Holy crud, we actually don't give a shit." My dad was my early business mentor, a truly successful entrepreneur. One of the things he would often say in response to ideas that I had was, "There's no percentage in it." My dad was not a philanthropist. What he did know was that without some monetary reward, any business effort would fail. Googs quickly reached the same conclusion. If you want things fixed and you want people to give a shit, you need to put a bag of money at the end of the path. Not the only step. While reading through the new program documents, it is clear that revenue sharing is not the only step Googs and team are taking, but it is the only one that matters. And it is the single one that will make all of the other ones happen. It is pay to play for ISVs now, which may come as an initial shock to many who had gotten used to the free ride. Turbulence ahead. The challenge that Microsoft has with this new effort is, of course, history. For most ISVs, their success has come in spite of Microsoft. They have learned not to expect anything. I was talking to one of the ISVs that Microsoft often showcases as an ISV success story today, who told me that Microsoft never gave them anything. No leads, no technical assistance, no sales support, no funding, no anything. They succeeded completely on their own. It will be a tough sell for Googs to convince ISVs that they will get a return on this new mandatory cost, and he is well aware of that. Steve falls for it again. The line between eternal optimist and moron is thin. I'd like to think I'm the former rather than the latter, but up until now that has not proven to be the case. We transitioned from a mostly SI to a mostly ISV because I drank the original Kool-Aid. Where many of those that did so at the same time have since abandoned Microsoft as an aid to success, I continued to stay the course and continued to be disappointed. My gut reaction to the new program announcement was excitement, but then found myself tempering my enthusiasm. Microsoft has also cried wolf many times. Embrace or scream. The choice of reactions for ISVs will fall fairly clearly on one side or the other. Initially, I expect a lot of them will scream. After digesting the full value proposition, I think a significant number will embrace it. I am embracing it, but I am aware that my credibility on this subject is now dubious. One aspect that I see as key is with the fact that I will now be paying Microsoft for the privilege of being an ISV for their products. They owe me something. Up until now, the only way to get any ISV help from Microsoft was to be persistent and super nice and hope they might throw you a bone for not being an asshole. This program turns the table. In return for my 20% payment, yes, we'll be opting into the premium tier, I will be expecting them to step up to the plate. And yes, if necessary, I will be a complete asshole about it. Resistance is futile. For the screamers, I think their screams will fall on deaf ears. I know that some of the bigger ISVs who like to position themselves as more important to Microsoft than Microsoft is for them, they will march up the ladder. You do realize that our solution generates a ton of sales that you would not otherwise see? This is the anecdotally but hard to quantify argument that they have leveraged for years. I'm sure there is truth to it, but again, hard to quantify. Many of the BizApps team have proven pliable in the past and quick to buckle under pressure. I don't think Googs is a buckler, particularly when he knows he is right. Screw you guys. I'm sure some ISVs will attempt this tactic, but it sounds a little hollow. I mean, where are you going to go? Revenue sharing is not a new idea that Googs came up with. It is what all the other platforms have been doing all along. In fact, it eerily resembles the Salesforce AppExchange model because it largely is. I would suggest that instead of trying to browbeat Microsoft into some kind of exception that ain't going to happen anyway, you instead hold them to their end of the bargain. I'll go into the specifics in a future post, but based on what I've seen and been told, if they do hold up their end, this is a no-brainer on ROI. If they don't, you can join me in the asshole club.